Respected sisters, dear brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you for joining us in our series where we are discussing the types of knowledge that our religion instructs us to learn. The discussion for today, inshallah, is going to center on two main ideas or themes. We started the discussion on the importance of prioritization and selection of knowledge the last time that we met. And you will notice today, inshallah, that this is a theme that will continue in the ahadith that we will look at. But inshallah, we will go a little bit further. And that is because the ahadith that we will explore today, inshallah, are going to introduce us to a number of what we can call general principles or general knowledge acquisition principles before we talk about the specific types of knowledge that our religion tells us to study. And once again, just like we did earlier in the series, we're going to see that there are things that apply overall. Before I talk about the specifics, we will see that our religion gives us general rules that we have to keep in mind before we enter into the specific types of knowledge that our religion is going to say, learn this type, learn that type. So inshallah, this is going to be clear from what we will talk about today. I don't think there's too much of a need to do a full recap of what we have covered until now. We are in lecture 3. And after this lecture, inshallah, you will start to notice that we will start moving a little bit faster. The topic is the types of knowledge, and until now we highlighted the importance and the relevance of this topic. We talked the last time that we met about, on the one side, knowledge being something generally desirable. It is so important and so valuable in our religion that we can say, generally speaking, our religion says go and learn knowledge. And go and learn as much knowledge as you can. This is the general teaching or the general principle. And that there is an abundance of knowledge. There is a lot of knowledge to be learned. But then we started to see that, no, our religion says, therefore, you have to prioritize. Don't go and learn all knowledge just because it is knowledge. As desirable and important and valuable as knowledge is, you have to prioritize. You have to be selective. And we started to see that, that's one. 2, we started to see that, so what should I therefore do? Do I select one type of knowledge and go drill down into that until I become an expert right from the beginning? And we saw the ahadith telling us, no, it is preferable to start by becoming a very good generalist. Go and learn the best that every type of knowledge has to offer. Then you can become a specialist in the types of knowledge that require specialization from you. And inshallah, that second part, this is what we will cover in the future lectures, inshallah. So for now, we've established that there is a lot of knowledge to learn. We are not supposed to learn all knowledge. Not everything about everything should be learned. We have to be prioritizing, we have to be selecting of the types of knowledge that we are learning, 1. And 2, that we should become good generalists before we become specialists and experts. Okay? And we talked about this in different ways, and we will come back to this towards the end of the series, inshallah, to close the loop on this. So as not to take too much time, let's jump into the ahadith. First set of ahadith. In the first hadith, the Holy Prophet ﷺ tells us, وَخَيْرُ الْعِلْمِ مَا نَفَعَ. This is part of a longer hadith in which he is talking about what is the best of everything in life. And so when he reaches the discussion on knowledge, he says the best of knowledge is that which is useful or beneficial. So already here, the Holy Prophet is telling us, not all knowledge is equal. Except that, and this is going to be the theme today, except that the distinction between one type of knowledge and another, or one kind of knowledge and another, is not based on the type of information. He is not saying, for instance, the Prophet is not telling me, go learn biology instead of chemistry, or chemistry instead of history. The Holy Prophet is not talking about the type of information I'm learning. He's giving me a general rule. He's telling me that not all knowledge is going to be equally beneficial. This should go without saying, but this has to become one of my principles. Before I talk about what did Islam say to prioritize, I have to see that the prioritization is first based on what is beneficial, what is useful. Here there's a lot that we can say. Because in one side, we can say that this is going to be, for all of us, it applies in the same way. There are types of knowledge that for all of us, we should be able to say, this type of knowledge is more useful than that type of knowledge. And in some cases, it's going to be entirely tailored and based on you versus me. What may be beneficial to me, useful to me, may not be the same as what is beneficial and useful to you. I may be in a different place in my life. I may have different needs in my life. So here the Holy Prophet is saying, خَيْرُ الْعِلْمِ مَا نَفَعَ. The best of knowledge is that which is useful or beneficial, or that which is going to benefit you. In the same line of thinking, in the same vein, from Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, خَيْرُ الْعُلُومِ مَا أَصْلَحَكَ. The best types of knowledge are the ones that are going to, I'm not going to use the terminology you see here, the ones that fix you, the ones that improve you, the ones that are going to make you better. But here the Imam is saying, ma aslahak. Islah is to reform, is to improve. This is an important notion. That means I have to do introspection. I have to look at myself, sit alone with myself and think, what needs fixing in me? Where do I need to focus? Imam Ali alayhi salam is telling me the best types of knowledge for you are the ones that fix your issues. Maybe my issues are different than yours. Maybe your biggest issue is, I don't know, you have trouble managing your time and I have trouble waking up for Salat al-Subh. I need to work on that. That's my biggest issue in the immediate right now. You have other issues. You're dealing with other. What is the type of knowledge that allows you to fix yourself, to improve yourself, to reform, right? Islah. So in the first one, it was whatever benefits you. Here, it's not neutral benefiting you. Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, go find the issue with yourself so that you can fix it with the right type of knowledge. And another hadith, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, خَيْرُ الْعِلْمِ مَا أَصْلَحْتَ بِهِ رَشَادَكَ وَشَرُّهُ مَا أَفْسَدْتَ بِهِ مَعَادَكَ. The best of knowledge is that which is going to allow you to rectify your guidance. You want to know where you're going in life? This is your guidance. You want to know how you're acting in life? How do you carry yourself in life? There are types of knowledge for that. Imam Ali alayhi salam is not telling you which type of information you get. He's only talking about the outcome. In other words, Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, whatever type of knowledge you need to allow you to reach this outcome, that's the knowledge you have to go get. It doesn't matter what it's called. It doesn't matter whether it's called akhlaq or tafsir, or it's called biology or ethics or history. We're not looking at the type, we're looking at the outcome. What effect is this type of knowledge going to have on you? That's the first part. Again, he's saying, ma aslahta. There is fixing, there is reform, there is something broken that I want to correct, to remedy. Okay. Then he says, وَشَرُّهُ. The worst type of knowledge, مَا أَفْسَدْتَ بِهِ مَعَادَكَ. The worst type of knowledge is the one that is going to ruin your afterlife. Ruin your ma'ad, when you will be raised again. Your next life. This is not, or shouldn't be, intuitive. Because before we just said that knowledge is generally desirable. Knowledge is generally good. Here we're starting to encounter a hadith that is openly, bluntly, directly telling us you may acquire knowledge that is going to ruin your afterlife. It's knowledge. It should be good. All knowledge is good. We should learn everything, right? Here it's openly saying it will ruin your eternal life. This is the worst type of knowledge. And again, Imam Ali alayhi salam didn't call it anything. He didn't label it. He just gave you an effect. What is the effect of this knowledge on you? What is its effect on your life in this world? What is its effect on you in the afterlife, in your next life? So here we have a hadith that are starting to give us general principles without talking about the type of information that we should be acquiring. Next hadith. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, Al-ilmu ilman. Ilmun la yasa'u an-nasa illa an-nazaru fihi wa huwa sibghatul Islam. وعلم يسع الناس ترك النظر فيه وهو قدرة الله عز وجل. Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, all of real knowledge is going to fall in two categories, in two types. The first one is the knowledge which people cannot dispense with reflecting upon. In other words, they don't have a choice to learn. This is knowledge that we can call obligatory, Imam Ali alayhi salam says. This is not a luxury. This is not a nice to have. Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying you have to go and learn this type of knowledge. Which is what he gives us a very broad, very general label to it. He calls it the imprint of submission. The imprint of Islam. Sibghatul Islam. This general heading of Islam, or its literal meaning. What allows you to submit to God? What allows you to understand your relationship with God? That's Islam. Everything that you think about in terms of actions derives out of this, comes out of this. First, what is the idea of submission? That you are submitted to your Creator, to your God. This part, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, you don't have a choice to learn. Today, we call it aqa'id, beliefs, theology, tawheed, and so on and so forth. Do you understand that you have a Creator? Do you understand that you have a God? Do you understand that you have a relationship with this God? Do you understand that that relationship dictates your relationship with the world, with other people, with yourself, how you carry yourself, who you are? This is going to entirely change you as a human being if you are someone, a human being who is submitted to God. You have taslim or Islam. And this is supposed to be something instinctive. This is supposed to be something wired within you. We all need this. And that's why, inshallah, we'll come back to this later in the series when we talk about the specific type of knowledge that we call religious knowledge. Where does it start? But our religion says every human being who is born naturally, you are wired to have this type of instinct. You are wired to believe in your God. You are wired to obey your God. You are wired to be attracted to everything God stands for. You have a need for that. If this doesn't happen properly and naturally, you will have defects in your personality. You will have issues in your personality. As a human being, this is what Imam Ali alayhi salam is talking about. He says this part, human beings don't have a choice to learn. This is obligatory. And then, what about the rest? Imam Ali alayhi salam says, it's up to you. Is it important? Of course. In fact, it's the only other valid type of knowledge there is. Imam Ali alayhi salam lumped it all under one label. And the label is, this is the power of God. This is the might of God. This is the creation of God. This is the wisdom of God. What type of world has He created? Everything you could think of, whether it pertains to you or it pertains to the world, is going to fall now under the second category, which is وَهُوَ قُدْرَةُ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. And by the way, this is why we say, if you understand these 2 points, why we say our entire religion can be summarized under the notion of Tawheed, the oneness of God. This is the deeper meaning. In this hadith, we have an application of this. One of them is your relationship with God, and secondly, the action of God in the world. Everything is a creation of God. How did God create it? Why did He create it this way? What does it mean for me? All of this falls under Tawheed. Do you need to know all of this? Do I need to know all the details of how God created the world and every detail in the world, every type of creation that falls under the might and power and knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No. I need to know just enough. If I'm curious, great, I can go learn more. If it allows me to, in the previous ahadith, if it rectifies me, if it fixes me, if it makes me a better human being, of course, go and learn. But first, learn what's obligatory. And then you move to what is, Imam Ali alayhi salam is referring to it as a luxury. It's a nice to have. But there are no other nice to haves. Imam Ali alayhi salam didn't talk about anything else. If it fits into these 2 categories, he's referring to them as valid types of knowledge. This is what this beginning of the hadith says. Al-ilmu ilman. True knowledge, it's as though Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, true knowledge can only be 2 things. So either you find a way to make whatever you're thinking about fit into one of these 2, or Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, it's not really the type of knowledge we're looking for. This is kind of a detail on the side, outside of what we're talking about. So again, knowledge is of 2 kinds. A knowledge which people must learn, cannot dispense with, reflecting upon. And this is the imprint of submission. And a knowledge which people may refrain from probing, from studying. For it is the power of God. Why? Because this has no end. Because there's no end to studying the power of God and how it manifests in the world. So focus on that which is necessary, which is useful. Next hadith from Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. He says, he's going to give us a few statements. Each one of these deserves a bit of attention. أولى العلم بك ما لا يصلح لك العمل إلا به. The most deserving knowledge for you, the knowledge that is most worthy of you, is that without which your deeds cannot be set aright. You cannot do your deeds properly without that type of knowledge. That type of knowledge is most becoming, most necessary, most important for you. That's first. The knowledge that you need to be able to do the things you do. Very practical, very immediate. What is it that I need to do? I need to pray. I need to go learn the knowledge that comes with praying. How do I pray? Can I pray without doing wudu? No. I have to go learn about wudu. Can I pray without understanding purity and impurity? No. I have to understand enough about purity and impurity so that I can perform my wudu, so that I can perform my prayer. I'm about to enter the month of Ramadan. I'm about to fast. Do I know how to fast? Do I know what might break my fast? This is in the immediate. I need to do deeds. I need to do actions. And this is only talking about religion. And we will come back to that later. But this could apply to anything else. Anything that is something that I have to do. I'm about to buy a business. I want to enter and start working into the stock market. Are there any laws I need to understand? First, are there any financial laws I need to understand? This is included here. The Imam is saying, go and learn the things that allow you to do the actions you need to do. Not even just religion. You need to be able to do what you are about to do. Do you have the knowledge to do it? No? Go learn it. Then the Imam says, وَأَوْجَبُ الْعِلْمِ عَلَيْكَ مَا أَنْتَ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْهُ. And the most obligatory knowledge upon you, now this is different, is the knowledge that pertains to the things that are under your responsibility, that you're responsible for, that you have a duty towards. You can't wait on those. You can't say this is a luxury. It's a nice to know. No, this is an obligation. I'm responsible for something. I'm responsible for someone. I have to go learn the knowledge that comes with that responsibility. There's no excuse. Not in this world and not in the next world. If God made you responsible for someone or something, you need to understand how that works. And these can be very simple things, and they can be very big things. If I now have children, and God tells me you are responsible for your children, I need to understand what that means. In what way am I responsible for my children? What is at least the minimum that allows me to say, I have divested myself, I've acted based on my duty towards my children? Do I have a duty towards my parents? The Imam says you have to understand, you have an obligation that if you have a duty, you have a responsibility, you have to know the knowledge that comes with it. What is the minimum? I don't need to be perfect. I know I don't need to go all the way, but at least to understand what is the minimum that allows me to say before God, I've at least done my duty here. So the Imam says this is obligatory knowledge. This is not knowledge that is a nice to have. Next. وَأَلْزَمُ الْعِلْمِ لَكَ مَا دَلَّكَ عَلَى صَلَاحِ قَلْبِكَ وَأَظْهَرَ لَكَ فَسَادَهُ. Now the Imam is going to be talking about things that are very similar to what we saw in the previous ahadith. Now he says, the most essential knowledge to you, the knowledge that should be the most stuck to you, that accompanies you the most, that stays with you the most, is that which guides you to the soundness of your heart. That makes your heart, spiritually, metaphorically speaking, makes it sound, makes it healthy, makes it good. And reveals to you its corruption. This is not easy. This is a type of knowledge. In our religion, we are inshallah going to talk about this. We refer to this as ilm al-akhlaq. We study this as part of the faculties of our soul. I have to have the tools and the knowledge to be able to look at my soul and say, what is working here and what is not? What's going well? What is sound and healthy and it is as it should be? For instance, I may find myself, generally speaking, when I think about it, I'm someone who's generous. I don't have any issues taking out money and helping those who have need. No hesitation, no problems with that, no complexes with that. Good, that's something good. It should stay as it is. It should improve, but if it stays as it is, it's fine. Maybe I have arrogance. Maybe I'm someone who does not accept any criticism. I have to have the introspection, the ability to look at myself, to think about myself and say, am I like this or not? This has to do with the soundness of my heart. How clean, how pure is my heart? And the Imam is saying there's a type of knowledge that allows you to make sure that that heart is healthy and clean, just like there is a knowledge that allows you to keep your body healthy and clean. There's a knowledge that allows you to think about your soul or your heart in this way, and to also allow you to see what's not working out, so that you know how to fix it. So here the Imam is saying, وَأَظْهَرَ لَكَ فَسَادَهُ. It's like a scanner, this knowledge that you have, that allows you to see where are the defects of your soul, where are things that are fasid, that are corrupt, that are unhealthy, that need fixing. This is a knowledge that allows you to do that. You have to go learn something to allow you to do that. So the Imam says this is the knowledge that should be with you all the time. Right? He says, أَلْزَمُ الْعِلْمِ. Mulazama is what? It's something to be associated with something else. To accompany it all the time. To be tied to it. Bound to it. The Imam says this type of knowledge should be stuck to you all the time. At all times, you're self-reflecting about the soundness and the purity of your heart, of your soul. Is it healthy and sound and good? Or are there defects and corruption in it and I need to fix them? And then the Imam says, وَأَحْمَدُ الْعِلْمِ عَاقِبَةً مَا زَادَ فِي عَمَلِكَ الْعَاجِلِ. And the best of, or the most praiseworthy knowledge and its outcome is that which increases your immediate action. There are types of knowledge where you're not necessarily going to see the effect of the knowledge right away. The Imam says the most praiseworthy, the knowledge that is the best in its outcomes, is the knowledge that allows you to do what you need to do now to see the results in the long term. But now you need to act. And if you don't have that knowledge, because you don't see the immediate result now, you won't act. This is a special type of knowledge. To use a clear example, for instance, our religion is going to give us knowledge that tells us if you do the right act today, you are going to have a long-term effect after you die. But it's not limited to that. You may study in finance the effects of saving now or investing now and the difference that it will make in the long term. Your ability to retire, your ability to be strategic as a family. Where do you want to be in 20 years? What should you do now? This is what the Imam is talking about. There are types of knowledge that will increase or improve your action now, even though you may not see the result immediately. But you have to act now, and you will see the result in the long term. The Imam says this is the most praiseworthy type of knowledge. Its outcome is praiseworthy. What it gives you is praiseworthy. You should praise that knowledge and what it gives you. Because this is a special type of knowledge. Human beings are stuck in the present. You don't want to work on things that you don't see the result. You'll only see the result in 5 years or 20 years. And sometimes in a month or 3 months, depending on your discipline and your ability to see in the future. There are people who work now for things that will happen in the next century and to leave a legacy behind so that they are remembered down generations. That's how they think. This is what I think Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ is referring to when he prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes him an imam, Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ, the first thing he asks for is, what about my progeny? What about people remembering me at the end of times? He wants people to remember him at the end of times by leaving a righteous progeny in the world. This is some strategic thinking. This is not your typical human being. This is where we see glimpses of why these people are special. The first thing he does when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, now you have passed all the tests, he's already a prophet, he's already a messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, now I have made you an imam. the highest rank. You are now a leader for humanity. The first thing he says, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. What about my progeny? He's not limited to himself. He doesn't think just about himself as an individual. He wants this righteous line to remain in place until the end of times. This is strategic thinking, but presented in a Quranic language. And then from all of this, the Imam is going to give us the general principle. Something very similar to what we just saw in the last lecture. In the story of the Holy Prophet, when he saw the people gather around the man, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam says, فَلَا تَشْغَلَنَّ بِعِلْمٍ or تَشْتَغِلَنَّ بِعِلْمٍ لَا يَضُرُّكَ جَهْلُهُ وَلَا تَغْفَلَنَّ عَنْ عِلْمٍ يَزِيدُكَ فِي جَهْلِكَ تَرْكُهُ. Therefore, do not busy yourself with a type of knowledge whose ignorance does not harm you. Remember the story of the Holy Prophet? He started with, is this a type of knowledge whose ignorance harms you? If you don't know about it, I'm going to start with what makes it easy for you. The default is you don't need to learn. Not the default you have to learn everything. So that he says, is it beneficial? No, he says, let's start with the default, which is, you don't need to learn it. If you don't learn it, does this ignorance harm you? That was the first criteria, the Holy Prophet last week, when they told him he knows everything about the Arabs and their history and their poetry and their wars and so on and so forth. He told them, but that's a knowledge whose ignorance does not harm. If you don't know this, you don't get harmed. It doesn't affect you negatively. And then the Imam continues, وَلَا تَغْفَلَنَّ عَنْ عِلْمٍ يَزِيدُ فِي جَهْلِكَ تَرْكُهُ. There are types of knowledge, if you're distracted from them, if you're neglectful and you don't learn them, they will increase you in ignorance. They will affect everything else. And you will be more ignorant because that knowledge is missing. So there's a real harm. And this harm, the way the Imam is putting it, is compounded. So the Imam is giving us a real rule or a general principle. And again, did the Imam mention any specific type of knowledge? Did he say this is aqa'id, this is akhlaq, this is fiqh, this is tafsir, go learn this, don't learn that? No. General principles. Which means that these apply to any piece of information that may have this effect. It doesn't need to fall under a specific label. So if you learn biology and it does this beneficial effect, great, it falls in this. If you learn history, if you learn language, if you study philosophy, whatever you do that allows you to fall in these beneficial effects and to avoid the ones that are harmful, it applies. It is not necessarily religious knowledge. There's more to say, but let's keep going. The next hadith from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. I like this hadith, so I put it, even though it's a little bit longer, and I really wanted just one line from it. So I put the line in bold and underlined, but I added the rest of the hadith, because the Imam is actually telling us about a whole bunch of other ahadith in the hadith that he is relaying to the companion that's asking him. This is a part of a longer story. Someone comes to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and so he starts to say this. There are parts here we're going to leave until later. I want to come back to them and present a detailed explanation for some of these. They're very important. But at least for now, I want to mention them and show how the Imam ties logically these pieces together. So Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, العلم أصل كل حال سني ومنتهى كل منزلة رفيعة. And we talked about this. He says, knowledge is the root of every noble state and the culmination of every lofty rank. And we talked at length about the value and importance of knowledge that is unmatched. Here the Imam says the root of everything that is good is knowledge. And the highest peak that you can achieve in anything is through knowledge. Okay, so there's nothing left to say about the value and importance of knowledge. So he starts with that. And then he says, وَلِذَلِكَ قَالَ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وآله طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. And that's why the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, has said, the seeking of knowledge is obligatory, is incumbent upon every Muslim man and woman. So now we have a very clear obligation, and the Imam even explained to us why. By the way, just this part is a whole theory. We could spend a long time on this. Because the Imam didn't just say, go learn knowledge. Knowledge is obligatory, just like your prayer is obligatory. He could have said that. He didn't. He started with a very interesting statement. He said, the root of all that is the best. That's one. And to achieve the highest in everything. That's two. So he's coming at knowledge from two angles. He's coming at it as, what's the root? What's the starting point? What's the foundation? If you want to achieve the highest level of anything, what's your foundation? Knowledge. Now that I am on my path and I want to achieve the top in that, whatever I'm doing. Now this is the other side. Now I am there and I want to achieve the highest. What do? The Imam says, knowledge. So from the bottom, it's knowledge. From the top, it's knowledge. That's one. Two, the Imam said, he used this as his justification. He's explaining why it's obligatory. And he didn't say that it's important, it's beneficial. He said, so that you become the best. Which is why I always come back to say, if you are a true follower of Ahlul Bayt have different standards for their followers than for the masses, for normal people. The standard of Ahlul Bayt for their followers is, you have to at least aim to be the best. It's not enough to be mediocre. It's not enough to do the minimum. Be the best, or at least aim to be the best. Understand how to become the best and work hard at it. Otherwise, why would the Imam begin by saying, the foundation of all that is good is knowledge, and the way he said it is kul hal sani, things that are noble, lofty, high, superior, not mediocre or average or just good. And to reach the highest level in it, it's knowledge. Therefore, see the logical conclusion, therefore knowledge is obligatory. So why is knowledge obligatory? Let's flip it. Why is knowledge obligatory? This is the corollary in math. If you flip it, knowledge is obligatory so that you become the best. Oh, but I didn't think I have to become the best. I thought good enough is good enough. Average is good enough. Mediocre is good enough. No, not in the school of Ahlul Bayt. You have to aim higher. وَلِذَلِكَ قَالَ النَّبِي. So he justifies why knowledge is obligatory. And now he's going to add more. This is not the only explanation, but I don't want to dwell on this. Inshallah, we will come later. He said knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim, man and woman, which is very important, especially for those times, but today as well. And we spent lectures talking about this. The misunderstanding about whether women in Islam should learn or not, and how much. The Holy Prophet went out of his way to mention both man and woman. He didn't need to, The Arabic construction does not need both, but he made sure to mention both, which means he's rectifying a problem in society. He has to address it and explicitly say the words so that people understand. Man and woman. One. And then Imam al-Sadiq repeats the words. He didn't need to repeat every word, but he did. In any case. But then the Imam continues, أي علم التقوى واليقين. So he gave an explanation. What's the type of knowledge that the Holy Prophet is referring to when he says knowledge is obligatory? The seeking of knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim man and woman. And the Imam said two things. Taqwa, which is very difficult to translate in English. Inshallah, one day we talk about taqwa and what it means, how rich it is as a concept. Taqwa gives you immunity, but it also creates fear in you. That's if I wanted to simplify it to the most. Taqwa protects you, but taqwa creates fear in you. A fear, not a normal fear. A fear out of awe. A fear out of standing before something that is so amazing, so big, so splendid, so formidable, so grand, that it makes you fearful. This is what they call reverence, reverential fear. But at the same time, taqwa protects you. It gives you waqaya. It gives you immunity. And that's why it becomes very difficult to translate this term properly. A good way to translate it is to say you are God-wary, God-aware. You're always aware of the presence of God because it gives you that state. There's a lot more we can say, but let's say it quickly like this. أي علم التقوى واليقين. So which knowledge is obligatory upon every Muslim man and woman? The knowledge that gives you taqwa and yaqeen, certainty. So that you are no longer ever in doubt. You don't live in doubt, in hesitation, in uncertainty. You're certain. And this alone creates a domino effect. This gives you a path. You don't have any hesitation. You're never unsure because you have yaqeen, because you have certainty. And these again have to do with your spirituality and your beliefs. So the Imam here is defining it this way. It doesn't need to be this, but in this hadith, the Imam defines the obligatory knowledge as this. Then he continues, وقال علي عليه السلام اطلبوا العلم ولو بالصين. So Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is telling us now about another hadith, about the importance of knowledge. He says, Imam Ali alayhi salam said, and seek knowledge even if it is in China. At that time, this applied more than today. China is closer to us today than it was to them at that time, relatively speaking. How hard it is to get to China. Imam Sadiq says, Imam Ali mentioned it this way. Even if you have to go all the way to China to acquire it, you have to go. You have to seek that knowledge. And then he says, وَهُوَ عِلْمُ مَعْرِفَةِ النَّفْسِ وَفِيهِ مَعْرِفَةُ الرَّبِّ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Which knowledge is it the one that I have to go seek, even if it is in China? It is to know the self. This is the part that I'm leading to later. We're going to see a lot of ahadith. I won't go through all of them. We'll mention a couple that talk about the importance of knowing the self. Why is it so important? Because Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam keep telling us, the better you know yourself, the better you know your Lord, the creator of that self. This is one of the best ways to get back to your God, by knowing yourself. In any case, the Imam continues, وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله من عرف نفسه فقد عرف ربه. He says, and the Holy Prophet has said, the one who knows himself or his soul or his self knows his Lord. Okay? And then the line that I wanted from this whole hadith. The Holy Prophet, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam then says, ثم عليك من العلم بما لا يصح العمل إلا به وهو الإخلاص. In this hadith, everything the Imam says, he defines. He says, and then, after all of this, I gave you the advice of the Holy Prophet and the advice of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, now that you know this, then go and acquire the type of knowledge that without which you cannot act in a sound way. Your actions are not good. You don't know if they're valid or not. So you might think, it could mean, for instance, how do I perform the ruku' and the sujood of my prayer? If I don't know how to perform my ruku' and my sujood, I can't do my prayer properly. Which is true. And it's important. And that's why the Imam fixed it right away for me, corrected it for me, by defining it and saying it in a way that is going to make me understand what he's talking about. And he says, this means that which you need so that all your actions are valid and you cannot perform an action without it. This is your sincerity. This is your intention. This is your niyyah. Why are you acting? Why are you praying in the first place? Not how you're praying. We'll get to that. Why are you praying? What is the intent behind your action? And so for those who have been with us from the beginning, you'll understand why we spent, I don't know how many lectures, 15 lectures, talking about intention and sincerity. When we were talking about knowledge, we said, before going any further, we have to talk about intent. We're going to need that in everything in life. And everything in life has to start with knowledge. So I have to start with the intent to acquire knowledge and the intent to use knowledge. But I'm going to have to apply that to everything. Here the Imam is telling me, and that thing that makes you able to ensure that everything you do is valid, sound, good, acceptable is what? It's not the details of the act. The details of the act are important. They are a derivative. They extend out of this, which is sincerity. That you have pure intentions when you're doing the act. This is what gives it its value. The more the intent is good, the more the value increases. The same act. The intent is bad, it loses all its value. The same act. One person gives a huge sadaqah, but the intent is bad. It goes nowhere. Imam Ali alayhi salam gives one ring as a sadaqah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the Quran that we're still reciting until today. Because he gave a ring. That was not worth that much, by the way. It was a very normal, simple ring. What gives value is the intent behind the act. Until today, we always talk about the incredible sword of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Dhul Fiqar, how it was given to him, and there's a whole story from Jibreel alayhi salam, and so on and so forth, and what happened in the battle. If you read the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam, you see that he would take his sword and push it because it keeps getting bent. So he pushes it against his knees to fix it. And he would say, if you were not something special given to me, I would have gotten rid of you. The value is not in the piece of metal that he's carrying. It has become a symbol for us. It's the intent behind it. It's the sincerity behind it. And then the Imam continues, ثُمَّ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ بِمَا لَا يَصَحُّ الْعَمَلُ إِلَّا بِهِ. So this part, again, the Imam is saying there are types of knowledge that if you do not have them, you are unable to act. So here he summarized it as your sincerity, your ikhlas. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله, and this is another important addition in the hadith. The Holy Prophet has said, this is still Imam Sadiq alayhi salam talking. The Holy Prophet has said, نعوذ بالله من علم لا ينفع. We seek refuge in God from a knowledge that is not useful, that is not beneficial. Again, we have to go back to what we established earlier. Because generally we would say all knowledge is desirable, all knowledge is beneficial, all knowledge is good. And the Holy Prophet says, I seek refuge in God from the types of knowledge that are not beneficial. I don't want that knowledge, the Holy Prophet says. I want God to protect me from a knowledge that does not benefit me. وهو العلم الذي يضاد العمل بالإخلاص وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ قَلِيلَ الْعِلْمِ يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى كَثِيرِ الْعَمَلِ. The connections here are deep that the Imam is explaining. He says, so when the Holy Prophet says he seeks refuge from a type of knowledge that is not beneficial, what is he referring to? He's referring to anything, any type of knowledge or anything that will prevent you from acting with sincerity. This could be anything. Sometimes I think about what are others thinking about, and that will ruin my sincerity. I want to make sure that if I'm saying it here the right way, it's captured on social media and I get more views. That's the important thing. That's knowledge. I know how social media works. But it's ruining my sincerity. This should not be the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then he says, وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ قَلِيلَ الْعِلْمِ, and this is the last remark of the Imam, and know that a little bit of knowledge, we will come back to that inshallah next week, and know that a little bit of knowledge calls for a lot of action. So before you jump into just acquiring more and more knowledge, have you given the little knowledge you have all its due? Have you properly thought about what it fully means and acted upon it? And again, this is why we built the series in this way. For those who have been with us from the beginning, we spent a long time talking about two things: sincerity of intention and action. Before we talk about knowledge. Because knowledge has to lead to action. Knowledge alone, just accumulation of data and information, that's not real knowledge. So anything that prevents you from acting or anything that prevents you from having right intentions, this is knowledge that the Holy Prophet says, I seek the refuge of God from that type of knowledge. That does not lead to action or prevents me from being sincere. Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the next hadith, he says, من فضل علمك استقلالك لعلمك. I'll wrap it up quickly, inshallah. These two hadith I thought would go together. I have to say them each twice, because there are two ways to understand them based on the Arabic. So I'll say them quickly in Arabic, and then I'll read them in English in translation version 1 and translation version 2. First hadith, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, من فضل علمك استقلالك لعلمك. Could mean, Imam Ali alayhi salam is saying, part of the excellence, part of the merit of your knowledge is that you regard your knowledge as being little. You always see your knowledge as being a little bit of knowledge. So this has to do with modesty and humility. True knowledge is always going to make you more humble, more modest, not more arrogant. That's one understanding when the Imam says, istiqlaluka. It could mean that you consider something small, qaleel, little. Second meaning, the Imam is saying part of the merit and the excellence of your knowledge is that it makes you self-sufficient. is that it makes you autonomous in your knowledge. Knowledge will give you this, your ability to become autonomous, not dependent on others. You can think for yourself. You're not a follower. You're not blindly following like the masses. You're not being used and abused because you depend on others in how you think. You can think for yourself. You can be critical. You can take a different path. It's not because it's on social media or everybody does it that it's true or that it's right. You can think for yourself with knowledge. The validation does not come from the outside. It comes from you. Whether something is valid or not, correct or not, authentic or not. Knowledge, enough knowledge will give you that, Imam Ali alayhi salam says. It will make you autonomous. And this can work at my level and yours, us as individual human beings. It could also work at the level of civilizations. You can tell this to a country. You can tell this to a nation. Go and acquire your own knowledge so that you become independent, autonomous, self-sufficient. You're not a follower. You're not dependent on others in everything you do. You generate your own knowledge. You generate your own interpretation of understanding. You're not just a consumer of what the others call knowledge. And you don't even have the critical ability to say, is it real knowledge or not? Is there a better way to do this? This is all in the first hadith, where the Imam is talking about your self-sufficiency in your knowledge. Knowledge will give you that power. It's like a superpower that you get. In the second hadith, the Imam flips the two letters. من فضل علمك استقلالك بعملك. And the first one, استقلالك بعلمك. So here, again, we can translate it in two ways. Either the Imam is saying, part of the merit of your knowledge is that you will always regard your actions as being little. The more knowledge you have, this knowledge is going to give you this type of merit, this type of value, this type of excellence, that you are able to see that you haven't really done that much. You don't become arrogant, you stay modest because you have a lot of knowledge. This is a connection with spirituality. The Quran says, those who fear God the most are the ones who have the most knowledge. In fact, the Quran says, only those who have true knowledge fear God. إِنَّمَا, so surely or most certainly, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهِ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Most certainly, it is those of His servants who have knowledge who fear God. In other words, those who do not have knowledge cannot fear God. In any case, here the Imam is saying, مِنْ فَضْلِ عِلْمِكَ اسْتِقْلَالُكَ بِعَمَلِكَ. Part of the merit or the excellence of knowledge is that it makes you self-sufficient in your actions. And this goes hand in hand with the previous hadith. In the previous hadith, the Imam is saying you can think for yourself. You can generate your own knowledge, your own interpretation of reality, and so on and so forth. In the second hadith, he's saying your own knowledge is going to allow you to act independently. You don't need to depend on others in every action that you make. And again, we can say this at the level of the individual, and we can say this at the level of the collective. We can apply this to our community. Am I self-sufficient? Do I have everything I need to have what they call today thought leadership? To think for myself, to lead in thinking, or am I a follower? a blind follower? Am I good at doing taqleed? The taqleed that the Quran criticizes. The taqleed that the Quran says, this is not the sign of true humanity to say, I do as others have done, or I do as those who have power have done, or I do as I saw my parents do. What if your parents were not that wise or that intelligent and they did not know what they were doing? How will you know if you don't have your own knowledge? If you have knowledge, then you can assess. Here, they are right. This should be maintained, this should be preserved, this should be protected, this should be repeated. No problem with that. Therefore, conclusion from all of this. What did we achieve today? Quickly. First, that we have to prioritize. So, beneficial and useful in general. All knowledge that is generally useful and beneficial to me, I should acquire it. 2, any knowledge that improves my state in general. This is not the same thing. Sometimes my state is good. My condition is good. And I can improve it. I can make it even better. But it is good. And sometimes, point 3, knowledge has to be corrective. I'm not in a good state. It needs to be fixed. It's broken. This is a different urgency to acquire that knowledge, because we saw the hadith say, Ma aslahak, that which fixes you, that which corrects you and remedies you, that heals you. You need to be fixed. 4, make sure that it is tailored to you. The Imams use this language. They say, Ma aslahak. They didn't say, Ma aslah al-insan. Ma aslahak. They're talking to you. Every one of us has to take the hadith and say, Ma aslahani. What is going to fix me? What fixes me is not what is going to fix you. It may be, it may not be. It may be the same but in a different way. I have to apply it in a different way, in a different dose. I have to tailor it to me. Difficult to overlook the spiritual and the religious aspects. We try to untangle in these ahadith general knowledge from religious knowledge, because I want to talk about religious knowledge next. But we started to see that as soon as I talk about general principles, I'm going to have to talk about religion and spirituality. And we're going to explain why that is the case next week, inshallah. Why religious knowledge has to be looked at 2 different things. One way to look at religious knowledge is that which becomes your lens through which you see the world. That's religious knowledge, or what we call our worldview. Who you are as a human being, where do you come from, where you're going, that's the foundation. That's your full identity. This is religious knowledge. It makes you see the world differently than someone who doesn't have that knowledge. Your place in the world is different. Your relationship with yourself, with other people, with those who came before you, with those who will come after you, all of that changes if you have religious knowledge. So that's one way to understand religious knowledge. That it is foundational to you as a human being. And this is what we're seeing in these ahadith, the general principles. Then we will see that there's also the specific types of religious knowledge. This is about knowing how to read the Quran, knowing how to perform your ruku' or your sujood. These are very specific. Knowing how to perform ruku' and sujood does not tell me who I am as a human being. It tells me how to perform the rituals properly. Important? Absolutely. As important as your aqeedah? No, absolutely not. Your aqeedah comes way first. It defines who you are. It changes your relationship entirely with God, with your place in this world. And this is the knowledge that we have seen until now. It's the general principles. It's the ground of your being. And we're going to see that again, inshallah. So there's 2 ways to understand your religious knowledge. Then, we saw in the ahadith that some knowledge absolutely is obligatory. It's wajib. You don't have a choice. It's fariḍa, it's fard. If you believe in this religion, you have to believe that God is saying you have to go and learn, you have to go and seek that knowledge. This is not a nice to have. So there are certainly types of knowledge that fall in this category, and others that are important, beneficial, useful, but they're not obligatory. So this has to be part of how I prioritize. Next, what do I prioritize? My ability to submit to God. That was clear. Sibghat al-Islam in the hadith. The imprint of your submission. You were wired to submit to God. This is part of what you have to prioritize as being obligatory. Next, your immediate deeds. Everything that you do, your immediate actions, religious and non-religious. The Imam said, go and learn these. You have to learn these. This is obligatory. Your duties and responsibilities. Anything you have a responsibility over, go and learn what that means. There is knowledge associated with that. Everything that touches the sanity or the health of your heart and your soul. It's obligatory to learn that. Plus, understand the self. I said I will come back to that, inshallah. Anything that touches the long term. This is a special category of knowledge. You have to prioritize it. Knowledge has to be linked with action and outcome. Anything that prevents you from doing action is not real knowledge. Real knowledge does not paralyze you. Real knowledge should push you to go and act. There's something distorted in your knowledge if it's leading you to not act. And then focus on the outcome. And I'm going to come back to this point. And finally, and we saw that in the last hadith, autonomy. Knowledge should lead to you becoming autonomous as an individual and as a society. Autonomous, self-sufficient. This is not to say don't go and consult. This is not saying that. This is saying don't be weak. Don't be a blind follower. Be strong and have the tools to be strong. Have the tools to have the power. Think for yourself. Don't rely on the thinking of others. Anyways, I've talked a lot about this point, so inshallah it's very clear. There are people who have written to me about how I say people become sheeple and all of that, so I won't go further into that. And then the general effect of the knowledge is more important than the type. If there's one conclusion from everything we covered today, is that we were talking about general principles of learning knowledge. Why? Because the Imams, the Ahadith, the verses, they are not talking about a specific type of knowledge. There are things that are even more important than the type of information, the type of data it is, which is the general effect it has on you. What can you do with this knowledge? What does it do to you? And that's why earlier in the series we had referred to it as transformational. Knowledge changes you. It's not just raw data and information that you accumulate. So what is the effect that it's having on you? How is it transforming you? This is what matters much more than the type of knowledge it is. And that's why we see a hadith very clearly talking about being important, being obligatory, go and learn it, stay away from another type of knowledge, but they didn't say what. You might think, oh, they're talking about books that we all know are supposed to be forbidden, and Islam says, don't read books about witchcraft and sorcery and black magic. Okay, the hadith did not say that. The hadith gave me a general rule. I'm not saying there are no hadith that talk about that. These hadith are more important. They're giving me the general principle. This type of knowledge, does it harm me if I don't learn it? Does it benefit me if I learn it? This is how I prioritize. This is my principle. And then I know how to prioritize. Where does it fall under my priorities? Inshallah, I'll come back to this as an introduction. I was going to end with this today, but it'll make the lecture too long. But we're going to see that therefore, the knowledge is going to fall in the same categories that we often refer to in fiqh. We say everything that we do in this world falls under one of the five. Sometimes they refer to them as ahkam. There's a verdict. There's a practical position that is the verdict of everything that you look at. It's either obligatory or prohibited. It's either desirable or undesirable, so recommended or not recommended, or it's neutral. And this deserves an elaboration, but we can apply this to knowledge because we're starting to see it in the ahadith very clearly. There are types of knowledge that are obligatory. There are types of knowledge that are recommended. There are types of knowledge that you can be indifferent to them. There are types of knowledge that are not recommended at all, and some of them are forbidden. And the Holy Prophet says, I seek refuge, a'udhu billah, from these types of knowledge. This is forbidden. And yet, they didn't talk about specific types. They are general because they are focused on the effects that it has on us. After this lecture, inshallah, as I said, inshallah, we're going to start to move a little bit faster. I know that there are people who have recently joined, and I know these lectures can be a little bit heavy, abstract, theoretical. It takes a bit of a warm-up to see how we get going, but this is like a muscle that we build, and with time, we start to see that there's a way to read the ahadith, to understand the ahadith, to start making connections, to see how they apply to our lives, and to become familiar with the wording and the way that Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam talk to us, talk to their followers and instruct us, and how we create from these different ahadith that look like they have nothing to do with each other, we create what today in the academic world, for instance, you would call a theory. You put them together in a way that is consistent and that gives you a full, complex, rich message that you can then take and apply in your day-to-day life. Let's stop here. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If there are any questions, concerns, comments, Allah yakhlīkum.
It's beautifully how things were presented today.
Allah yakhlīkum.
I'd like to rely on the saying, الساكت عن الحق شيطان أخرس. I'd like to find the root cause of that. Looking at other schools of thoughts, some of which were students of Immat Ahlul Bayt. Is the khalal or the issue or the defect, is it the sincerity or is it the intent that drove them, that could be categorized or labeled as? Because the Prophet's sayings are very clear, yet we can see the Ummah is going in a different direction.
Ahsantum. Your question is indirect, but it's carrying a lot. So first things first. You mentioned the hadith attributed to the Holy Prophet or to others, the one who remains silent in the face of falsehood or oppression is like a mute devil or mute demon or mute evil. This hadith by itself is problematic, whether it is acceptable or not, whether it is authentic or not. There's a lot of discussion about it, but the general message from it is available in many other ahadith. So the general message is that there is a duty for those who have knowledge to show their knowledge, especially at times when people are confused and not sure of their knowledge. The reasons behind, I'm not going to go and say, do a digging into the intent behind. For someone who studies history, who studies aqa'id, who studies the hadith of Ahl al-Bayt or the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his behavior and his life, it's very difficult not to see that the truth is too obvious. And it's difficult not to say there is something going on that looks like it's lack of sincerity. It's very difficult to say all of this is still entirely sincere. However, the problem is sometimes there is also, beyond all of this, aside from all of this, you may have information that will justify the other position. And because of that, you will let go, you will overlook, or you will be forced to reinterpret things in a very convoluted way to make them work and to maintain the reality or the version of reality that you really don't want to see go away. And this is the issue, is your loyalty to the truth or a version of reality you refuse to see change. And I think oftentimes this is what happens, is that you are not willing to question some things which you consider to be your whole existence, your whole reality. It's like telling someone, the ground you walk on is going to disappear. It's too scary. It's too much. The change is too big. It's too drastic. I cannot be ready to change so deeply, so existentially. It's too much. So I will not even go there. We'll find a way to make this work so that this ground remains a ground that I can keep walking on it. You can't remove the ground from under me. And I think in a lot of cases, that's my feeling. Otherwise, I agree with you that it's very difficult to know history, to know the sayings of the Holy Prophet, to know how the Holy Prophet carried himself and what he said in his life, and not to end up with a very clear path for where truth is and where the Holy Prophet told everyone who follows him to go to continue on the path of receiving guidance from the Holy Prophet. That should be very, very clear. It's too obvious. But subhanallah, that is the fate of our world. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.